Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's SEMrush or Semrush webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about SEO as a secondary service. So we have several experts on deck today to talk about this topic. One of the first of our panelists is John Fairley. He is with Walker Sands Communications. He is the Senior Vice President of Demand Gen, and Walker Sands is a PR agency. He has experienced adding SEO as a secondary service in 2008, and he's been using SEMrush since 2009, which, that's a pretty long time, 10 years. Fun fact about John, he once took second place in a breakdancing contest, so I might have to ask him for some tips later.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, John. Our other panelist today is Liraz Postan. She is with LP Marketing Services. So she is an international SEO and content expert. She helps brands and publishers grow through search engines. She's also Outbrain's former content director and previously worked in gaming and B2C and B2B industries for more than a decade. And a fun fact about Liraz is she used to be an actress and a professional singer before she started doing SEO. So, hi, Liraz.
Hi, nice to meet you all.
And then we have our presenter for today. Her name is Regina DiPerna. She is the content director and SEO lead at NewsCred. So NewsCred specializes in the financial services vertical. When she's not helping brands win organically through the power of content, you can find her making and drinking craft cocktails and reading poetry, which sounds like a good combination.
It definitely is. Thank you.
So today the format's going to work like our other webinars. So Regina is going to give a presentation, and you can ask questions throughout the webinar in the comment box as you're watching, and our moderators will be collecting that and then sending them to me. And then at the end of the video, there'll be a roundtable discussion with Liraz and John and Regina, and we're going to answer some questions from the community. So that being said, Regina, are you ready to get started?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay.
I will go ahead and share my screen.
Awesome.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this webinar. So today we're going to be talking about SEO as a secondary service. So off the bat, what is SEO as a secondary service? Well, basically, it is a term that I made up. The definition of SEO as a secondary service is when SEO-related work is done by a team other than a dedicated SEO team. So as we mentioned here, SEO does not exist in a vacuum. Any team that creates digital content or is involved in any way with content published on a website has a pretty direct impact on that brand's SEO performance. Now, if you're working in a client agency capacity, your client may not necessarily see it this way. They think that they have, perhaps their own dedicated SEO team, their PR team, their email team, their UX team, and so forth, and that all of those are totally separate disciplines and that those streams never cross, which of course is totally not true. So basically, if you work within one of these adjacent teams, you might be in the position of advising on SEO, even if your client doesn't see the SEO connection. As you may already know, organic search is by far the primary channel people use to navigate to websites. So according to SEO Tribunal, search engines drove 93% of all website traffic in 2019. Yet, only 44% of businesses incorporate SEO into their digital marketing strategy. So basically, less than half of businesses employ a dedicated SEO team, whether that's in-house or through an agency or consultancy. That means that for the majority of businesses, website content strategy is run by non-SEO teams. And what we're going to talk about today is how you can still do your due diligence as a quote non-SEO SEO team, and maybe even potentially upsell your client by showing the value of SEO services. So let's start with an example. Let's hypothetically say you work at a content marketing agency as a content strategist, and you're working with your client on an editorial style content hub or blog. Your main responsibility is to drive the content strategy, which includes submitting article pitches and things like that. Your client may not see their blog as an integral part of their funnel in order to build organic traffic and conversions. A lot of times brands think of their blog as powering channels like social and email without really understanding the organic potential. So that puts you in a unique position to educate them about that potential. So you can start by asking them what their organic goals are, what their conversion goals are, what products and services are a priority right now at their business, and so forth, and explain how SEO data-driven ideation as part of their content marketing program can help them reach those goals. So this isn't just you creating more work for yourself. It really is an opportunity to educate your client on the value of SEO as it pertains to content marketing. It's an opportunity to build trust with your client and drive additional value within your partnership. And importantly, it's an opportunity to expand your services with your client. So even if you're working with a content marketing client that isn't that mature yet in their program, you can illustrate the value of SEO as it relates to their content marketing goals and efforts. So for instance, if your client isn't working with an SEO team during the build of their blog, that's an opportunity to sell in SEO consulting services, since of course how they structure the hub and where the hub lives, all of those considerations have massive impacts on organic performance. So these are just a few examples of how SEO as a secondary service and content marketing can cross streams, and how you can turn it into an opportunity. So let's look at another example. Let's say you work with a client on an email distribution campaign. Let's say you're not in the position of creating the content as you would be with content marketing, but rather you're in charge of selecting the pieces of content that will be featured in the email, and you're in charge of deploying said email. Email and organic are, of course, totally separate traffic channels. However, SEO can have an impact there as well, since broadly speaking, highly searched evergreen topics tend to perform better on email channels than, super niche topics. So looking at organic traffic data and understanding what the best performing articles are in terms of search and why can actually help you select more strategically. So similar to the last example, uh, this type of value add helps establish additional trust with your client, and can help them see you as an expert in more than just email marketing, if that is in fact your goal. So a lot of these SEO-related issues can stem from a few key misconceptions about SEO as a discipline. The first issue is that your points of contact within your client's or organization, they might not have the in-depth knowledge about where SEO begins and ends that you do, or they might just think SEO is something to do with keywords without realizing really the incredible expanse of what SEO really is. So this is no dig on them. Their expertise simply lies elsewhere. But the issue that it causes is that they may not be able to see the comprehensive value of SEO as a service. So the second issue is that your client points of contact may not be fully looped into the SEO initiatives that are already fully underway in their organization. This is particularly true for large enterprise organizations. So for instance, your client may have an in-house SEO team that, say, might only work on very bottom funnel, like product focused content, or maybe they're only doing technical optimization, or maybe they only work on certain lines of business. So things like that can lead to silos and inefficiencies, and that ultimately prevents your content from reaching its full potential. So in summary, applying the SEO knowledge that you have to other disciplines where it's applicable can help lift performance, can improve your standing with a client, and can lead to upsells and build trust over time. Like I mentioned earlier, the idea here isn't just to do extra work outside of your SOW. It's about expanding your client's understanding of SEO and how it could make a good addition to the primary services that your organization offers. So, what are the major hurdles that you might encounter when attempting to showcase your SEO knowledge within a different discipline? Well, the first is that your client may not understand how SEO can tie in with what you do. We've covered a few examples of this already, but it's worth mentioning again here since it's probably the number one issue. Secondly, your client may not even know that your team or organization has SEO capabilities. So if you're in a content marketing team or a social team or even a web development team, your client may assume that your expertise begins and ends there. So they may not know that they can even tap you for SEO initiatives that are related to whatever your primary offering is. So, what's the solution? Well, the first and major piece of this is to educate your clients. Educate them on how SEO impacts your team's primary offering and educate them on SEO best practices. So, this could be something as small as sending them an on page optimization checklist. Or even as big as doing a full scale technical audit of their site and discussing the findings with them. So you can do this on an ongoing basis as an act of due diligence. But it's also important to stay educated yourself. So even if you're working in a different marketing channel, you can stay up to date on SEO news, including importantly changes to best practices and algorithm updates. So this basically can help you find additional ways to add value and stay up to date. Another important part of the solution here is to find productive solutions to silos. So like I mentioned previously, a lot of times, especially enterprise organizations are very, very siloed. So there could be opportunities to collaborate with other teams, including even SEO teams, but you might be missing them due to the internal structures within their organization. So one of the major solutions here lies in the technology you're using. For instance, are you creating content in a platform that is transparent and collaborative, or are you creating content in a closed ecosystem, like via email, for example? So essentially making the content pitching, production, and publication a truly cross-team affair can help open up new opportunities within your organization, both in terms of SEO and not. And as we've previously alluded to, all of the increased education and transparency here can lead to an expanded scope with your client. So that actually brings us to hurdle number 2. So in an open, transparent, and highly communicative cross-team relationship, working with other agencies or teams within your client's organization can be great. However, the worst case scenario is when there's another team that is sort of inadvertently obstructing your SEO efforts. So for instance, let's say your client is doing an internal refresh of their content, which is fantastic in theory, but as part of that, one of the other teams they're working with just straight up deletes pages that they've determined don't have value anymore, rather than redirecting them. So doing this would, of course, result in 404 errors on the site, which has negative implications as an SEO. And that the right solution is to strategically 301 redirect those URLs. So this is one example of how other teams can unintentionally impact SEO, not to mention other marketing initiatives. So what is a non-SEO SEO team to do when working with other agencies or teams goes awry? So the first solution is, of course, to collaborate and communicate. You can think of these challenges as an opportunity to build a relationship and strengthen it by providing constructive solutions. Find the right way to reach out to the teams that are involved and be instructive on what the issues are, how they impact SEO, how they impact, even other channels, and importantly, provide recommended solutions that are backed up by data and research. So this is a moment that you can show other teams that you're an expert in this space, while also showing that your team's motivation is to find an effective solution, whatever the issue is. There will, of course, be times when your recommendations will not be taken for one reason or another. Other digital marketing teams will not always necessarily do the right thing for SEO if other initiatives are a bigger priority. So just remember to take small losses to advance the greater cause of building trust with your client. So in the case of the 404 example, that would mean, doing outreach to let the right people know what the issues are, but also remaining patient while the issues get fixed, which might be a while or may possibly even be never. Okay, so the third hurdle we're going to talk about today is a big one. Let's say you do everything right, you advise your client on SEO best practices, and they sign off on your team doing SEO-related work. Okay, great, but then what happens? You're not a dedicated SEO team, so you might not have processes that are in place for executing on and implementing that work. So what do? The solution, of course, is to establish those processes for the execution of SEO-related initiatives. And a really important part of that is getting a sense from your client teams about where the pain points are in their current processes. So you can really do some discovery around existing processes and whether it's publishing new content or updating old content or making site-wide updates, and figure out how they're working currently and also where they feel they could improve. And basically from there, you can work backwards to figure out the most efficient processes for executing SEO. I realize this might sound a little bit abstract, so I'll give you an example. Let's say you've gotten the client sign off to update meta descriptions and title tags for your client's blog. So from there, you host a discovery call with your client's content team, and you learn that one of the biggest bottlenecks is with the tech team that actually implements those types of updates. Let's say they have a huge backlog. So from there, you could look into the possibility of making those updates manually in the client CMS and build a process around that. Or alternatively, you could time your updates such that they can be implemented during the next implementation sprint. Working with tools that help to build SEO into these types of processes is critical. And this point can be a good time to introduce new platforms and tech that can help simplify the process. So for instance, ensuring that your CMS even has the capability to easily create important SEO fields, like title tags and meta descriptions, or that you're working with an on-page content optimizer to ensure that you and anyone else writing and editing content can ensure that they're following through on the keyword strategy that you've established. So working with SEO forward platforms can help build SEO into processes without having to establish separate work. And similarly, planning for SEO-related initiatives within your content calendar can help establish a regular cadence and expectation for these processes. So for teams that work on long-form content creation, like content marketing teams or even copywriting teams, it can be really helpful to build things like content refreshes and quarterly data-driven content pitches into the ongoing editorial calendar, and even factor for things like audits on an annual or semi-annual basis. The bottom line is that if you're able to execute on SEO-related work as seamlessly as possible, you'll reduce the burden on your client and continue to build a case for SEO. Okay, this last hurdle is probably the biggest issue that a non-SEO SEO team faces, and ironically, it doesn't really have anything to do with your client. So the challenge is if you work at a company or on a team whose main offering is something besides SEO, let's say you work in content marketing or PR or copywriting, it can be super challenging to get internal buy-in at your organization for offering SEO as a service. So similar to any clients that you might have, your organization might be laser focused on your agency's primary services, but they might not see SEO's relevance to all things that are content related. So you and hopefully other people on your team know that there's a case to be built for SEO internally, but your company as a whole may not want to invest, all that much in SEO as a service, or they may want to focus solely on your primary service. So getting attention and resources for SEO initiatives can be very challenging if you're not part of a dedicated SEO team, but it is not impossible. So the solution here, again, is to educate internally. If you're able to help illustrate how SEO impacts your team's primary services, getting colleagues and management on board will be a whole lot easier. So this will involve taking some independent initiative. So for instance, host internal workshops, host trainings, and really do everything you can to make it known that your colleagues can come to you for any question that's related to SEO. So as part of this, you and anyone else that you might be working with on SEO can take the initiative to establish these processes for offering SEO as a service. So for instance, what does an SEO audit look like? What's included in SEO workshops? What are best practices for optimizing a page that you can share with your colleagues? So helping to shape and firm up these offerings and products really can help legitimize SEO within your organization. In addition to that, an important way to illustrate and educate is to build case studies from the SEO work that you are able to do and share that with your company. Showing positive performance data as part of a case study is a super important way to illustrate the value of SEO and just provide the company as a whole with an incentive to continue building it into your offerings. Of course, using all of these tools to help get buy-in from your company's executive team is the ultimate goal. So from there, you're one step closer to incorporating SEO into your team's core offerings. That was all I had for today. Thank you so much for listening. And Kelsey, I will turn it back over to you for the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was very interesting, and I loved all the examples. So that was great. So we do have some questions from the audience. Joel is asking, and anyone can answer this, any of our experts, which ways do you find that an SEO department and a PPC department, so paid search, can help each other perform better?
I think that's a great question. Basically, SEO and PPC can work really close together and generate really great results. Most of the times, PPC is, let's say, the SEO pain point, as the SEO takes time to see the results and everything. And PPC, it's like instant. You can totally see if this meta title works, if this page is converting or not. And sometimes you can even focus on this piece of content, which is, I don't know, like the CPC is very high for it, and by moving for an SEO strategy and winning this keyword ranking, basically will allow you to win this result and lower the budget from the other end. So when working with PPC and SEO, you can improve together the quality score, because SEO comes from content and technical point of view. You can optimize their landing pages and basically give them a lot of value. Another point is basically seeing the results instantly and showing which CPC basically will be benefit more for SEO, and then change the strategy and move forward for an SEO boost for this landing page specifically, if it's a content page. So there are a lot of things that you can do together with PPC and SEO to work really close together. And this is just the beginning of it, basically.
Yeah, that's a good summary, I think. Regina or John, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I can speak to that from sort of a content marketing and SEO perspective, and strongly agree with all of that. Yeah, I would definitely say PPC, I think it's especially important to think about the entire funnel, right? So a lot of times in content marketing, we're really focused on top and mid-funnel content, very long-term, long-tail keywords and long-form content, and sort of like building awareness and building content that answers questions. But it's really important to be in contact with your partners that may be running PPC to figure out like what sort of like at the bottom funnel, at the product level. I work primarily in financial services, so we're always thinking about products. What products ultimately are we driving towards? And basically how can SEO complement some of the work that your PPC partners may be doing?
Yeah, and I would just add that the content calendar is probably the the glue for all of those different channels. And every time a new piece of content is being created and promoted on the website, you have an opportunity to have a search engine, an organic search strategy for that as well. So is it just a PPC landing page? We're not going to try to leverage it at all for organic, or are we going to try to do both? And sometimes it might mean that we actually create a separate page just for organic, and one just for our PPC landing pages. So having a content calendar that's shared with everybody, that evolves, and involving who's ever involved with SEO in the decision-making process for when you're rolling that out, we find that to be an amplifier.
Yeah, good. All right, so Tony's asking, Regina, I know you had mentioned that there's an opportunity to add on services whenever you're talking to your clients about SEO. So Tony was asking, what's the best way to bill for an add-on of SEO? So should you do a package that, combines your services you already have, or is it more of an a la carte? And then she also asked, which might be a more detailed answer, what's best, billing flat rate or by performance? Because I know with SEO, Viraz was talking about how PPC's instant results versus SEO might take a while.
That's a fantastic question. And I think ultimately that is something, and I can speak to my own experience here at NewsCred. I think ultimately the question of how to sell SEO, how to upsell SEO, is really a conversation to have within your organization. But I certainly think that there are use cases for both of the models mentioned. So like SEO as an ongoing service and SEO as advisory. But also there are certainly cases for standalone, like as they put it, a la carte items. So for instance, like doing a full comprehensive content audit. That is, an a la carte item that you could sell a la carte, but that also might lead to ongoing SEO services. Or, say for instance, your client is already really advanced on their SEO and content marketing, and they're looking to you to say, hey, we know that we need to update our content. So can you, look at everything in this specific line of business and tell us what we should update, what keywords we should go after, and things like that. So I think there are really, I mean, I would say as an SEO, the ultimate goal to work towards is ongoing SEO as a service and as advisory. But I think that selling a la carte along the way can be a really good stepping stone to get there. Yeah, and then sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Should you bill a flat rate or bill by improved performance?
Yeah, so I would say, and I would welcome any of the other panelists' input on this as well. For SEO, I'm always a little bit hesitant to, base any pricing around performance, just because there are so many factors. I mean, there are hundreds of things that can determine, a page's, let alone an entire website's organic success. And a lot of that is kind of out of your hands. So for instance, if your client has a website that isn't in good, technical working order, I definitely wouldn't want to price anything based on performance. So I would say it's really more about, doing it based on what are best practices, and basing your services around like slowly building an SEO program and working towards a fully functioning SEO strategy.
Yeah, I think that's good, because I would say to customers, if they are working with an agency that's promising results, like we'll get you to page 1 of Google in 3 months, I would almost be cautious of that, because you just never know in SEO, like you were saying, there's so many other factors that SEO isn't responsible for.
Right. I mean, let's say there's, a really expansive algorithm update, or even let's say you're doing everything right, and one of your competitors just swoops in from nowhere because they've improved their SEO strategy. So yeah, I think there's a lot of X factors there.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. I thought this was a good question for John, since Walker Sands had started SEO as a secondary service about 11 years ago. How can an agency or a company build credibility in SEO if they are just starting out?
Sure. I think it starts out in the sales process. So when you first establish the relationship with the prospect and then ultimately the client, if you don't tell them you're an SEO, if your website doesn't show SEO, and so on, it's going to be very hard for you to establish that credibility. Also, what I like to do in the sales process or when they first kick off, even if we just sell them PR services, is to get access to their Google Analytics and to their Search Console. Then your team can start doing investigations to see if you can add in if there's any real need, immediate need. I would say 99% of the prospects we've worked with, they have SEO issues that should be resolved immediately. Most of the time, it's not anyone's fault. It's just how the sites have evolved over time. So what we usually try to upsell is and we're not trying to sell services that the client doesn't need either, by the way. But an audit is usually an easy thing to do. If you have the tools, like you can use Semrush, and there's a couple of other tools as well, but I found Semrush to be very powerful tool for doing an audit, especially if you have access to their Search Console and Google Analytics. Then you can upsell those services. And then ultimately, retainer is usually what you're trying to go for, as you mentioned before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it, because if your website isn't optimized, then that doesn't, show well for what you're offering.
Right, and a lot of clients they'll have either like a technical problems, which maybe if you're just getting into SEO, it's going to be much harder for you to do like a very technical audit. Although the tools will provide a lot of that for you. The content audit and a content gap analysis and a competitive analysis compared to that's actually a very strong thing. If you do a competitive SEO analysis and give it to the CMO, they almost always want to invest in SEO after seeing that, because usually there's usually one or two competitors that are doing really, really well, and they're either in the middle or the bottom, unless they've really got a dedicated SEO team that's been watching it for a while.
Yeah, for sure. John, we're getting some comments that you don't have your camera on. So if you turn that back on, that'd be awesome. There we go. Okay. Liraz, this was something that we had talked about a little bit before this webinar today, but Regina touched on this in her presentation. I think it'd be of interest to our audience. So if the client, that you're talking about SEO, it doesn't show any interest in, getting SEO wins, despite, you showing how other companies have maybe done it or some case studies, is there a way to kind of prove to them that SEO is worth the cost or worth the time and effort, or organically what it can do for them? Do you have strategies for that can help agencies kind of sell SEO as a secondary service?
Yeah, sure. Basically, once you're a third party, let's say I'm an agency that deals with the client's tools and data. So the answer for everything is data, of course. If I can show what they're missing, or let's say anything that their strategy is missing from the paid side or PR side, that can easily get them on board with me. Let's say in terms of sales, most of the companies that I deal with are very looking into the bottom of the funnel, sales oriented. They're looking for leads, they're looking for the signed deal, let's say. And if I can just show them lack of content or online content that they have for proof or case studies that they have, they use PDFs, they use something that's not really complementing the organization. So in terms of that, I can just show them. You can have rankings, you can have a lot richer website, you can get be on the same line with your competitors, and show them with the data how much they spend on paid services and paid strategy versus your organic strategy, which is totally free. So I would aim for quick wins. I would aim for bottom of the funnel first, I would aim for how they look in terms of the other competition looks. And by that, I will slowly start building the trust. Also, if there's a huge update and I'm not giving any SEO services to this client, let's say I'm giving some content strategy services and I'm logged in and I have all the data for the Search Console or anything like that, and I see something is happening inside the Search Console. They have huge de-indexing pages, like they had like in May, there was like this bug. So if I can just, give them this tip, hey, I just noticed there was a huge bug in Google and you just lost a couple of pages. Maybe you can just have a look on it and maybe I can look in it, just something that you can totally give those small tips and small insights that they can maybe at some point start seeing you as something other than just content services. So those things are totally can be just keep educating them. Hey, there was a huge update now. Just take a look. Everything is okay. If you want me, I can take a look. If you want me, I can do that. So always trust data. Always. If you have the data, if you have Google Analytics, you have Search Console, even external tools that you can basically. I'm always crawling sites that I'm working on. If I see something dropping or anything like that, so I can just give them a value, because my main KPI, no matter what services I give, I want to see the results up. So if something is happening, so of course it's going to affect my job.
For sure. That kind of goes along with the question that Jules is asking, who's watching today. Hi, Jules. Do you suggest charging for the SEO audit, or is that something free that you could offer to get your foot in the door? What is everyone's opinions on that?
Yeah, I can take a first stab at that. I would say as much as you can, I would say definitely charge for it. Care of the earlier discussion, like that can be a really good way to get your foot in the door. A lot of times, especially if you're working with a client that, you think their SEO and just content strategy in general needs a lot of overhaul, a truly comprehensive SEO audit is a lot of legwork. So I would definitely say, I would highly recommend charging for it. If you think there are instances, I'll just cite an example. In the past, we've done like line of business audits for our clients and like smaller audits that are maybe only 10 slides or something like that. If you use your judgment, if you think that will be useful in helping to sell that further along in the process, I would say do it. But best case scenario is they pay for it off the bat, and hopefully, because there's a ton of valuable information there. So it's definitely something worth paying for. And I would say from there, that can be a really good jumping off point for establishing what work needs to be done to get them up to speed on their SEO strategy, so that there's potential for sort of ongoing retainer services down the line.
Yeah, and I would say that what we usually do before we recommend an audit is we do a small mini audit that might take a half an hour. Run through the site just to say, yes, there's actual opportunity, and usually you'll come up with a couple of good nuggets there. And even if they don't go for the audit, you've added value to the prospect or to the client, and then they'll often come back. And another great time to introduce SEO services is if they're doing a site redesign. So because everything is going to change, the content's going to change, the URL paths are likely to change, everything. And so they're very scared often of losing the SEO value that they've built up over the years. And it's a great opportunity to come in and say that you can help them.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. That's a great point.
I would just add as well that you can add in like free, some quick wins, some easy things to fix. So they're not large organizations sometimes are a bit afraid of doing a lot of big changes. So you can just, you have these pages, a couple of pages that are broken and stuff like that to add value for the user experience and to the funnel. And then if they want a comprehensive reports, then of course it's something that you should definitely build, because this is taking a lot of work and a lot of manual work sometimes. So you should definitely build for it.
Yeah, I agree. Especially like Regina said, if you're doing an actual like manual audit, I mean, whenever I've done those, it takes me, hours and hours to do. It's not, if I know SEMrush has quick automated audits, and if you wanted to offer that as free, but not try to pretend like it's, an actual audit, that might be a good compromise, or at least share some screenshots maybe from that audit. But otherwise, I agree. You should try to sell it whenever you can. Let's see. Another question we had, what are some examples of some software or technology that helps siloed teams collaborate on SEO initiatives?
Yeah, so this is something that's on my mind a lot. NewsCred, we specialize in content marketing, but also integrated marketing. So I think the key piece there is breaking down those silos. And so, I mean, I can speak to how our own platform works, which is it helps to get a lot of different teams, across the organization in a single platform that is, easy to use, is very like content forward, and also serves as, ostensibly like mega project management, right? So I think just to, toot NewsCred's own horn, I think that that to me is a tool that has proven to be truly like very useful. But yeah, I mean, I also think things like SEMrush, has a lot of like incredible capabilities that, care of Laraz's point, can really help display the value of data. I think that is super important. So yeah, I think really anything that you can do, and this is not to dog email, but anything that you can do to get out of email when you're collaborating with teams, I generally find is useful because, like I mentioned in the webinar, that is a closed ecosystem. So it's just between you and those people. It's only visible to that set of teams. But using powerful software can help, can basically help to break down the silos and not only between you and your client, but also within your client's organization.
That's true. I would also add that I use personally Google Docs, everything that's visible to everyone, that can comment, they can share their point of view. And task management platform, I use currently Monday.com, which basically helps me to collaborate with different organizations, different teams in the organization, different departments, even across the sea. Everything is like very visible to everyone. And this allows me to tag people if I want to ask something for their opinion, or if I'm doing a huge influencer campaign, and the social media guy that's sitting like really far from me right now, and inside the organization, let's say, can totally look at it, see how they can leverage it. It's same with PR, same with let's say even technical aspects, everything that basically people can see and look. They're like shared calendars you can share with everyone, so they can, it's not the sharing, but it's just the tagging. Because sometimes people have the calendar in their mind, in their shared doc, but everyone has different jobs, different work. So they don't have the time to look it over what you're doing, like what the content marketing is doing, what the SEO is doing. So collaborating and tagging them every once in a while just to collect their opinions and thoughts, and maybe to get them on board with you via those platforms can be useful for everyone.
Yeah, we use Trello. So like Monday, it's a good collaborative tool. You can tag people in it. And I'd say an interesting way to get the content team aligned is they really want their content to be successful. So when you share page level reports with them, they get very motivated when they see certain types of content are driving more traffic, and they're inquisitive. They're like, why? And then you're able to explain why. You pull up data from Search Console and things like that to show them which keywords are driving traffic and how those keywords have maybe buy intent and things like that. So I think sharing the reporting data with them, along with using a collaborative tool like Monday or Trello or any of the other ones out there, is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I just heard about a tool called Notion, and it's supposed to take all the tools and put them into one, like Google Docs, Trello, Asana, whatever. So I'm going to check that out and see if that's an option too. Okay, somebody asked in the audience, some clients don't prefer to provide their Google Analytics or Search Console access. So in that case, what tools or things do you do to when you're running an SEO audit or gathering initial information to present to the client?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll say one of the other great things about the NewsCred platform is we actually have our own proprietary analytics. So if you are fully integrated in our platform, there's really like a very powerful analytics capability. So that's a really, I mean, for a lot of reasons, it's fantastic. It's great for clients because they can see it too, and everyone in their organization can keep tabs on it. But particularly during, at a moment when you're doing an audit, it's great to have, to be able to work around GA if need be. And, it's also, there's definitely quite a learning curve for platforms like Google Analytics. So yeah, thankfully ours is pretty easy to learn. But I will also say in the past, if we, run into issues like this, using a tool like Semrush, and I'm not just placating you, is genuinely very helpful because you're able to see like things like traffic estimates. You're able to get real-time ranking data, things like that. So basically, even if you don't have, hard performance data, you can do a lot of fantastic forecasting from Semrush and other tools like that.
Yeah, Screaming Frog, Semrush, Deep Crawl, Sidebulb. I'm a fan of, I have tons of tools. I have too many, I must say. But no, my main tool is Semrush. I'm using it for everything, the site audit tool as well. For different technical things, I use for Deep Crawl, let's say, or Sidebulb. I'm trying to get a lot of data, different aspects of data from each kind of tool. Because sometimes, if you just stick with one tool, it gives you a narrow picture. So what I'm trying to do is look at several tools and see a wider picture and get the SEO data from the SEO audit.
I would say I'm not going to mention any new tools. You both rattled off all the tools that we use. I would say if you're trying to do, the question was for a full audit. I can't imagine you able to do a full audit without understanding what's happening to the traffic after it reaches the website. So you can only do, I would say, a partial audit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a trust thing to get access to the Google Analytics, or there might be another team that's internal team that don't want to like give it up to let them know either that someone's doing an external audit. So it's really hard to do a full audit, but I think it's really important to understand what's converting and what are people actually clicking through from a keyword perspective. So I would just add that I wouldn't set expectations that you'd be able to do a full audit without
Mm-hmm.
having access to something like Google Analytics or Search Console.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. John, it's interesting because Walker Sands is a PR agency. So how does PR and SEO intersect? Because I know we talked about content, Regina talked about that, but what about PR specifically?
Sure. So PR is actually close in some ways. We don't refer to link building as link building. We refer to it as link earning, because that's really what you're trying to do is you're trying to earn. Years ago, I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, but so we used to do link building all the time. Now we do link earning. And so really finding out those high authority domains that you want to link to. I mean, it's very analogous to what the PR teams do when they build media lists. We also extend the SEO tools to them so that they can do authority list building as well. They can see, have they built links or have those sites linked to their competitors and things like that. So those two kind of cross over. So they run their media lists against domain authority. and sometimes they'll report on that, as well as clients that are, as they try to move from awareness and PR to lead generation, having access to Google Analytics. We can talk about how the how those placements are driving traffic to the website and driving conversions in some cases, or how they played. If you've got closed loop reporting with great attribution, you can say, hey, this person came in on a PR placement, then they came in organic search, paid search, then they converted. And so really you get to tell a really complete story. And so that kind of link building was our initial foray into building the two together, as well as some reputation management inside of their branded search results. If things are coming up and it's not very ideal, reinforcing that has been really strong. So, and I would say that our PR plus SEO clients, they're our largest clients, they're our stickiest clients. They stay with us the longest amount of time. So it does give you an opportunity when you add SEO as a secondary service to really build a tighter partnership with your clients.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. I think we have one more question, and then I'll ask everyone for their, final advice or thoughts. So I know a lot of the discussion questions we talked about were as if you are a third party agency offering the services to your clients, but is there a difference between tackling SEO as a secondary service from that angle versus in-house at a brand? Because I know when I've worked at agencies in the past, just when SEO, was starting to get popular or continue to grow about 10 years ago, there was some resistance to SEO in-house. So does anybody have any insight on that would be helpful for the audience?
There are differences. Basically, when you're an in-house, I was in-house SEO for 12 years. So when you're in-house SEO, you've got a lot more data and a lot more insights. And you know the pain points. You know where the organization does not want to go and does not want to feature, specific things or specific positionings. When an agency is a bit far from this and they are a third party, sometimes the organization doesn't want to share those thoughts and doesn't want to share delicate things. So when you're in-house, you have a lot more, a lot more data that you can use in order to convince the other teams to work with you to solve those pain points. When you're in an agency and you don't have those information, don't have this information, so it's really hard for you to get all those insights. Sometimes you can offer something that is totally not acceptable because the competitor is doing this and that, and they don't want to get into it. It's a very delicate positioning. There is a problem with internal politics sometimes. Sometimes there are a lot of things that happening inside the organization when you're stepping in on someone else's toes, and you cannot know that when you're outside. This is why it's best to have a lot of meetings, even when you're doing one service and you have one contact point. Just make sure that you're doing, monthly meetings with other teams, just to explore, just to hear other things, and not be on the outside of the organization. Be as involved with the other teams, even you're an agency or a freelancer giving some services. This is the most important thing that I've learned, because you've got to make your clients believe that you're part of the organization, even though that you're basically not. This is something that will build trust over time.
Anyone else have any insight?
I agree with that 100%. And I would also just add on that, we've established that it can be really tricky to sell SEO as a secondary service when you're an agency, and some of the challenges around that. I will also say in some cases, working at an agency can actually be an asset in that capacity, because to a degree, your client is paying you to innovate and to advise. Whereas I think with the internal teams, there's just more of an expectation that here is how we're already established, this is how we're working. So I think sort of the internal fighting that battle internally can definitely be, in some cases, a little more challenging. I mean, I think there are pros and cons. But yeah, I mean, I would say that I think, even more so than being an external agency, playing the long game and building trust. And as Laraz mentioned earlier, using data to help make a case for it, I think is key to winning in the long term.
Perfect. Regina, since you were talking, and we have about 5 minutes left, do you have any parting words or any other, wise wisdom, pearls of advice that you can share?
Live every day like it's your last. Yeah, I would just say, to echo the presentation from earlier, communication really is key. And this is true, whether you're establishing trust as it relates to SEO, but also even more broadly for, creating an ongoing true partnership with, either a client or internally within your own organization. Shout things up the ladder, even if you're, the boots on the ground strategist who is just digging into the data and knows there's a case for this. Find ways within your organization to evangelize for SEO and communicate the value of SEO, and play the long game.
I like it. John, what about you?
I would echo that celebrating the wins, even if they're not done by your SEO team, they're done by the client, builds a lot of trust. When their developers do something right and you praise them and you show them the awesome results that they've gotten, that does a lot towards building trust. And I would say that SEO ends up, if you do things right, sometimes SEO is just part of everything that you do, and it gets into the consciousness of everybody. So I think just having that exposure, getting in on those meetings where you talk about it, goes a really long way.
For sure. Raz?
Well, I couldn't agree more, but adding to it, I would say that shining other people, other teams with what they do, sales team, support team, even the dev team, PPC, of course, conversion teams, anything that you can do in order to shine others through SEO and show them how SEO can basically benefit and maybe sometimes give them more easy on their day-to-day. So that can basically give you some quick wins and make a lot of people want you to join as a SEO secondary service. A lot of the clients, let's say, sign-offs and add-ons coming from internally, from the team's wish. This is something that you can totally leverage by just giving some high tips or some value for other teams and shine their work.
Yeah, for sure. I like that. All right. Well, that's it for today. Be sure to follow SEMrush on Twitter. If you have any other questions, we can probably get that to our panelists as well through Twitter. So thank you all for coming today. It was really insightful. And we will see everyone next time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.